Hello and welcome to the Swim Brief Mega Olympic Trials Preview. Now, just to set this up for you guys a little bit, what kind of expertise we're bringing to this. First, we have Eric Weiken. Eric, he's actually in Nebraska right now. He's had an active leaderboard for his Olympic trials picks for the last 18 months. He's been moving. It's got a board in his house, been moving people up and down. So he is excessively prepared. Eric, how are you?
I'm pretty good. I printed out the event list last night and I wrote some notes.
Don't lie, Eric. Don't lie to this. Don't lie to my audience, okay? They know. They know.
The Mel Kiper of Olympic trials here.
That's right.
I'll take his salary.
He's Mel Kiper, but with better hair. Eric Weiken. And on the other hand, we have Joel Rawlings, who we actually had to tell a couple days ago. Eric and I had to tell him that Olympic trials was happening, and he was pretty surprised by that news. But he's caught all the way up. He's ready to talk Tokyo 2021 qualifying. How are you, Joel?
I'm doing great, thanks. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, and I got some D3 swimming talk coming later in this podcast. That's what we call a tease.
Whoa.
Yeah, I know. Pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Really exciting stuff. And I'm somewhere in the middle between these two guys. So together, we're like the perfect blend, okay, of Olympic trials preparation. All right. So let's get right into it. The format, as proposed by Eric here, is we're going to go day by day. Each of us have looked at one thing per day that we're really excited about, and then a second thing that we're almost as excited about. And we're going to give sort of, our thing we're excited about and brief explanation why, and we're going to keep it moving all the way through 8 days of Olympic trials. So you guys ready?
Absolutely.
Ready.
Born ready. Yeah. Okay. So let's get to day one. Eric, first, what do you got on that first day of the meet?
Quick preface. This whole entire meet, like anybody who's going to hate on any of these picks, there are very few races, even within the semis or even prelims, that are not going to be exciting. So
yeah,
if we skip your best event or your favorite event, get over it.
If you're a swimmer,
is amazing.
Yeah, if you're a swimmer other than Shane Casas and you wish Eric would talk about you, just realize that Shane's his favorite, and that's that.
I don't know. Yeah, so starting out day one is, for me, it's the very first event. We're starting out with this men's 400 IM final. There's a lot to be said about it. We don't know what's going to happen with Lochte. Is his body going to be able to show up for this very first race? This is going to be some big final for Carson Foster, his very first one in terms of the trials, and expected to be near the top. And it's just going to set off the meet on a really fantastic tone. And then kind of coming right behind it, my honorable mention is the women's 100 fly. I'm just really intrigued by the pair of 16 and 18-year-olds that are into this. And just looking at the top 8 as a whole, nobody's going to be able to just kind of get into the top 8. There's a little bit of wiggle room, but there's so much speed below that 58 mark that it's going to be really difficult for everybody to able to just kind of get in. So yeah, that's my day one.
Yeah, I want to echo, because the 100 fly was my honorable mention. I just want to point that out as well. I think this is definitely one of those events, and I think one of the themes is, the fact that this meet is taking place a year later. It's allowed a couple of really young swimmers to continue. They get an extra year of development, and now it looks like 2 really young swimmers are like dominant in that 100 butterfly. Whereas, I think there was at a point in the lead up to this meet where you would have thought Kelsey Dahlia is a shoo-in. She's going to make the 100 fly, no doubt. Now she's seeded 3rd, so she's actually sort of more of a dark horse in this event, because if you look back at the history of Olympic trials, if you're seated in the top 2, there's a better than 50% chance you're going to make the team. Okay. So that means if you're seated 3rd, you're just raw probability of making the team it's less than a coin flip. And I'm really interested to see whether she can break that up or not. She's a tremendous swimmer, but will it be enough to break through on that one? All right, Joel.
I think it's definitely the same thing. What you're saying there is something that kind of goes under the radar. It's one of those where if you're seated well, because I think it's like the average is like 19% people get best times at these bigger meets. I mean, you say for nationals and things, and people always have different ideas, whether it's like, the travel, is it the stage, whatever it might be. But with only 19%, like you're saying, it's like if you're 3rd, it's like you become a dark horse. You're like, oh, if you have a lane, you have a chance. Like, well, that's sure you've got a chance, but it's not as great as people like to think. And you're absolutely right. This one year, I think these 16, 18-year-olds, it was amazing watching the first wave, just how many young swimmers there are. And again, you look down the road 4 years, what could possibly happen?
Yeah. And we're talking about Tori Husky there and Claire Curzan. And I think you talk about the personal best. It's really interesting. I mean, I haven't crunched the numbers on Wave 1 Olympic trials. So, but if I had to guesstimate like the percentage of best times at that meet, I would say it was less than 10%. And, there's a pretty good reason for that. I mean, making Olympic trials is hard. It's probably for a lot of these swimmers has been the swim of their lives to qualify for the meet. So them being able to replicate a better swim at the meet is highly unlikely. Now, the interesting thing for Wave 2 is maybe we're going to see a significantly higher percentage than 19%, because now we've got a self-selected group that where there's more people that didn't have to have the swim of their lives to qualify, and this may be their big moment. Joel, what do you have for day 1?
I like you said, I really like the hundreds all the way through. The hundreds of strokes I think are going to be really pretty interesting. And again, A, just with the nature of the sprint, anything can happen. But B, just how many different people are kind of in that hunt like that. And so I think that's going to be really, really interesting to watch. I like watching the IMs the most. I like watching the IMs in the first wave the most. Just because I just as a former club coach, I always thought, there's the event. 400 IM really shows the training, shows the coaching, shows everything like that. But when you look, again, we're talking Olympic trials just for setting up for the Olympics. I think the U.S. is going to do the best in the shorter events like that, the 400 IM, the mile, and things like that. Just aren't quite there yet.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of that, one of my day 1 things is actually men's distance, and I'm going to come back to this another time during it. But one thing I want to point out is, of course, I've identified myself on this podcast as the chief panic officer, who starts to panic about our Olympic chances. And I mean, I can remember the last trials that I attended, that was 2012. There was some doubt as to whether the American men would get 2 swimmers under the FINA A standard. So we could actually send 2 swimmers in the 400 free. And I believe they just got under. Now, at the Olympics, Peter Vanderkay won a bronze medal. So there is a little bit of history of the men's distance looking non-competitive coming into this meet, and still maybe coming out of this meet not looking very competitive, but actually overachieving at the Olympics. So I'm going to be watching for this, because I think that we have some distance swimmers certainly with the potential to contend, and sometimes it just doesn't come through until that moment. And one of the just strengths of the American team is consistently they have surprisingly good performances at the Olympics, right? So, I'm going to be watching this 400 free for any glimmer of hope for, I know that the women's 400 free, like, hey, we know what can come with that, but this men's 400 free, is there a glimmer of hope for somebody to have that breakthrough swim at the Olympics?
This was a hard choice, all these finals on this first day at 400 free. I was looking at that same thing. Like, I want to see what Kieran Smith does. He's got this high that he's riding coming off of, NCAAs and this success, and just training great, racing great, that it's going to be fantastic to watch. That whole first day is going to be nuts.
Yeah, I think there's an intangible there that like he has very high stakes competitive experience, and you can't underplay that. A lot of swimmers from foreign countries, they swim too many meets where they don't have good competition. I mean, like if you're the fastest 400 freestyler, and I know this from being in a little country in Denmark, if you don't leave Denmark, okay, and you're really, really good, you're world class, you'll swim so many meets where nobody's anywhere near you. And right. It makes it hard to be competitively sharp. Whereas somebody like Kieran Smith, even as dominant as he's been, he's getting pushed basically all the time,
right.
Competitively. And I think there's something to that.
Yeah,
even in practice with Bobby Finke and all that stuff. All right, day 2, back to Eric. What do you got for day 2?
That Hunter Fly final starting right out the gate. We've already talked about it. You've already talked at length about what we've got here. Is Kelsey going to be able to pull it off? Is she going to be able to get past those 2 young guns? Both of them have been on international travel teams. Has that been enough to get them ready for an Olympic trials final? Is it going to be where that ignorance is bliss, or are we going to see that they are just that lights out already at this point and are going to be able to swim in the biggest final of their young lives so far? So that's my big one for it. And then the honorable mention by a slim margin is that men's 100 breast final. I want to see the USRPT king. I want to see him in that top 2. I just want to see it. Like, it was like when Phelps won that Hunter Fly in 2009, and he's shown that he's not doing it in the polyurethane super suit. I want to see him up on the lane ropes. I want to see him splashing all over the place. I want to see him make it. And then I'm just hoping that we can see an American breaststroker under 58. Like, it's so important for those medley relays in the Olympics that these guys are able to push that 57 on a flat start, 57 low when it matters most, because if they're going for that relay against Great Britain, and
right.
we know that, they're coming to play. Petey is 55 on that relay split. Maybe we don't know, how do you make up for that?
Right.
So it's such a crazy situation that 100 breast has a much bigger impact down the road in Tokyo. So those are my 2.
Yeah, again, huge Michael Andrew fan. I want to see, is this the beginning of the Olympic dream for Michael Andrew? It feels like we've been waiting for this moment for, I don't know, like 9 years. It's been building towards something, and he's so close. And I think it's going to be pretty apparent from the beginning of the meet here, if he can swim just a little bit faster than he did at that meet a month out, he's going to make the team. And he's probably going to make the team in multiple events. So I'll be really interested to see. You talk about the Great Britain and relays. I also want to see this semifinal men's 200 free. I want to see, like, can we stack up against what they've put up? Because it's a formidable relay. And if you look at the seeds on paper right now, we're behind by a good bit. I think it's going to be so competitive to make it into a final because everybody's stacked so close that maybe the picture is going to come into a little clearer focus as to whether we can get a group of swimmers to be competitive in that relay and challenge Great Britain for a gold medal. Joel, what do you got?
I think that's why you see a lot of these guys that are signing up for so many different events, 5, 6 events. And you'd think normally like an older swimmer would be like, you just pick your spots. But exactly, these relays are pretty much wide open. And so if they can put up a good 100 or 200 time here, they got a chance at making the team, if anything, as an alternate on the 100 and the 200. Even the bigger name swimmers, just getting a couple hundreds or 200 swims down, something maybe a non-pressure event for them, but also just to get a time on the board so that, they have a shot at another relay or something. And I always hear, like, people talking about, especially on women's swimming, like, is this going to be too big of a moment? These kids are like 17, 18. And I think, good or bad, I think the kids now are so much more mature in the sport that you don't see that. They've been racing in big meets for quite some time. It's not like all of a sudden they came out of a zones meet out of North Dakota, like a Dagny Knudsen back in the day.
Right.
They've been swimming big meets for a long time. So I don't think the moment's going to be too big. I think they're going to race up, and it's going to be tough. Like the 100 fly is exactly, I feel like, we're all saying the same thing with 100 fly is exactly what we're kind of looking at, because it's pretty amazing. Like you said, all of a sudden 2 kids, like 1 year extra, and now they're here.
Yep. You got anything else for that day, Joel, or we racing on to day 3?
I think we race on to day 3, but again, like you said, the 200s, after watching what Great Britain did, it's going to be something. One thing you kind of touched on, though, is again, how the United States swims at Olympics. I remember talking to Chris Martin a few years back, and he's been to, numerous Olympics, and he's been on numerous international teams. And he said that's one of the things the United States has going for it, is that the Olympics are far more special to the United States swimmers than they are to a lot of other swimmers. And maybe that'll change over time, but he said it's a different feel for the United States team to be at the Olympics, because this is their big moment. While in Europe they have world championships, and so they've got that kind of light on them, of course. So it's not a pressure thing. It's just the Olympics have a mystique in the United States that is unparalleled.
Yeah, and we're used to being the dominant team and winning, and there's a certain aura to that. All right, Eric, bring us to day 3.
Day 3 was another really hard pick. You have 4 finals in the dead center of that session, so it's just going to be absolute mayhem by the time we get to the men's 200 fly semi. But my top pick right now is wanting to see what's coming of the backstroke. That 100 back final is what are we going to see from Regan Smith? What are we going to see from there's Steve Bacon, Olivia Spaliga. There's just so many names on that list. We just don't know what's going to happen. And then the big news with Kathleen Baker coming off of that foot injury. There's video of her now doing a start on social media. So there's definitely that ability to be able to get off the wall. But is that an issue? We're talking about a race that is really, really tight. Is that going to be a problem for the start and that turn in, the biggest final for them at this point in the meet? And then just back to back, that's my guy, Shane Castas. He's got his first potential final there to make it in the 100 back. Things definitely are wide open in that race. And then with, Jacob Pebley stepping back from competition right now to take care of himself, which 100% respect, I think, is amazing. But that really changes things a bit for that final. And are they going to be able to push that and see if Ryan Murphy is going to continue to be that backstroker that we've had in the past, like a Pearsall who just continues to shine in the biggest finals. It'll be good to watch. And can't forget the old man.
Matt
out there. Yeah, Matt Grievers is still out there. We don't know what that big taper is. He's got that old man strength. He's dad now. He's got all of these little elements that are coming in. It's going to be an interesting final to watch for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be a measure how important grip strength is in the men's 100 back. Because as Joel knows, when you have a small child, your grip strength, it's a real thing, because your grip ramps up to prevent multiple times per day, your child ending their own life, by just grabbing them when they're teetering on the brink of something. So, will Matt Grievers be able to translate that? I think, Eric, too, like I've got Kathleen Baker on here because, you got the former world record holder. And far be it from me to make it through a podcast without throwing a bomb at SwimSwam. But I have to say, and this goes to a broader theme of news, I don't know how you can consider yourself a news site when Kathleen Baker injures her foot in the beginning of May, and the only way we find out about it is via a social media post she made herself being like, oh, by the way, I hurt my foot in May, but I'm all good now.
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit of having this conversation in the office here where a lot of news sites have lost their way in the age of social media, because it used to be that the job of news sites was to present a critical analysis of what was going on. And social media has turned that on the head because, like, you know, your social media, you're just basically PR for yourself or your organization,
right,
or whatever. And it almost seems like sometimes SumSwam is just operating as a amplifier for personal PR. And that's how I felt with the Kathleen Baker story. That said, I'm a huge fan of hers. I hope that she's at or close to 100% because we could really use that as a U.S. Olympic team. Joel, what do you got there on day 3?
Yeah, definitely with Baker and like with Weitzel, just them always having some issues. And obviously with Baker, this is a foot injury, it's a little bit different than things she's had in the past. But those 2 injury issues, again, where you're like, these are like veteran swimmers that would really, I think just with their character and things, do so well on an Olympic team where it has a chance of having so many young swimmers on it. And then we say Grievers is the old man. I was thinking Murphy's the old man. I forgot Grievers. There's really old man, but like, because Murphy seems like he's been around forever. And the thing is, that veteran kind of again, not that it's a psychological thing, but just kind of knowing how to train and what to expect and what you need to put up for numbers before you get to the trials. I think Murphy's going to do really well here. But again, Casas, you know, Eric's the number 1 fan for that, but you know, he's had an amazing year, and so it'd be cool to see that get carried forward as well.
Yeah, and it would, just so the listeners know, we are planning on starting a GoFundMe for Eric if Shane Casas doesn't make the Olympic team, just to give him some support through that tough time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, look for that. If you're watching the results and you see Shane gets 3rd, obviously know that we've got something in the works. All right.
Yeah.
I would say my other story for that day, and I just want to, this is sort of more context and history, is the women's 1500 free. This will be the first time it's contested at the Olympic trials. And, you know, just to bring people back to the history of that, this is sort of a sexist old relic that this event has not been there. When they added a distance event for women, it was the 800 free. It was sort of like how women used to not be allowed to compete in the marathon because there was a theory like, oh my gosh, it'd be too exhausting for them. Of course, you know, science now tells us that actually the longer the distance gets, the smaller the performance gap between men and women. So it's just the opposite. And so that, you know, there's going to be history made in that race. And I think it's great for the U.S. too, because we happen to have the most dominant 1500 freestyler in the history of the sport. And so it's just great to see that change come in. And there's also, you know, a million WorkWorks distance coaches out there who are probably thrilled that there's another long race here at the Olympics instead of adding those damn stroke 50s, you know? So congrats to everybody, and look for that history making in the 1500 free. All right, day 4.
Yeah, day 4. I thought about putting that for that final race. You know, you're talking about the women's 1500 on day 3 with that prelim swim being the first one, but it feels like it's going to be kind of a foregone conclusion as far as who's getting first. So I kind of tried to avoid that one. The most intriguing race to me that night is the women's 200 IM, because we're seeing, you know, I didn't mention it earlier with the women's 4 IM, you know, Margalis, if I remember correctly, was very hesitant to even get into the 400 IM when she started really training for it and competing it just to kind of help amp up her 2 IM. And that was several years ago. And now she's the best 400 IMer we have. And being able to see if she's coming off of that, she's going to be able to put in that 2 IM again. And Madison Cox has been very consistent this season. I was able to actually drop a really good time recently. Is she going to be able to capitalize on that momentum and end up on the team? And then you have Walsh at 19 years old, another one of those kind of young ones we talked about. You know, Joel had alluded to their already elite level meets that they've gone on as far as our international travel for our junior team goes. And then, you know, Kathleen Baker, is that foot going to be able to make it to that final of that 2 IM? Is the prelim 2 IM, you know, is that going to be enough? Just there's still some questions there as that race comes through. And then my honorable mention is the men's 200 fly. It's a wide open race to see first time Olympians in this 2 fly.
Yeah.
With Luca Orlando, like how's he doing? Is he going to be able to come back on that 2 fly that he had a while ago? Zach Harding is up there, been consistent. Is Julian going to like continue this storybook senior year and be able to sneak in there? There's so much intrigue. And with Tom Shields and the 200 fly being a little bit rough this spring and being able to close it, is he going to be ready for that third 2 fly? Within Olympic trials, is he going to be ready for that with everything going on? And just a lot at play for an event that used to be, without a question, it was just going to be Michael Phelps who was going to win the gold, and that was going to be it. And it was just, like Katie Ledecky in the distance freestyle. It's going to be an interesting finish, that last 25, I imagine.
Yeah. I've got the same 2 events, so I'm just going to add what I can. I mean, I think, Madison Cox in the 200 IM, you talk about another swimmer who's seems to be benefiting from the timing. I mean, she's just surging at the right moment. And really what I want to see in Luca Orlando is he's kind of stuck in this middle zone where right now Christoph Milak of Hungary is the dominant swimmer internationally in that event. And he's quite a bit ahead of Orlando. But then Orlando is ahead of sort of the rest of the pack. And can he close that gap so that it's competitive? Certainly he's young enough that we could see some significant improvement out of him and make it a really competitive race in the Olympics. And that's what I'm going to be watching for. Joel, what do you have?
Yeah, I feel bad. This is the page I was like, next. I was like, it was a day really not, I was looking through all the other results and things. I was looking at these, and this is a day where I'm just like, I don't want to seem like I know I'm going to come off like as a hater here, but it's like I think like you have like a Ledecky or Phelps, and they've covered so many holes for so long in a sense where it's like you have a dominant person. So I don't know if people are like, well, maybe we just don't even really go after this event, or it's just covered up what we're kind of weaker at. This is one of those days where it's like, I mean, it's not as interesting. The interesting thing for me right now is just with the discovery of Baker's injury. Like again, if there's any lingering pain off of that, everything's going to be in that backstroke. And then if you heard anything, I'm sure the adrenaline and everything for her event is going to be over. And then also the next day, hey, you got the 200 IM, and it's like a whole different kind of pressure on your foot. A lot of different angles and things like that. And so it'll be interesting to see how that works. But again, I feel bad that I was just like, I've seen what the Europeans can do in the 2 fly and things like this. So like, let's go on to next.
All right. Let's go to day 5, Eric.
Day 5 is the men's 100 free.
Of course.
Yeah.
This is this is a heavyweight bout. And who's gonna get second? Dressel, if he's gonna be on even enough, it's gonna probably be at least the ability to touch out. If he's firing on all cylinders, because he doesn't have anything that morning right now. If he doesn't want to, his morning is completely clean. So we could see a pretty significant swim if he's feeling it and wants to pop one off. We could see 46 very, very easily at this stage. That would be incredible to see going into the Olympics, because we know that he just has this ability to just be able to keep progressing throughout a season and put it where it's out there. And is Nathan Adrian going to be able to pull it off? Is he going to be able to get his hand on the wall second? There's a lot of guys vying for that second spot, and that race for 6th is going to be just as nail biting as that race for second is, if not more so, because this is your opportunity. If you're 6th, there's a really good chance you're walking out of this with an Olympic medal and your life changing as a result of that. So that's my top one. And then the next one is the men's 200 breast.
We have the same ones again.
Yeah, it's one of those races where it's like there's potential for new Olympians in there. Is Cody Miller going to be able to put it together? His 200 is much better than his 100. He's been talking a lot about being able to train for that 200, and that's where he feels comfortable. Is Lacone going to be able to put it together? Josh Pernot has kind of been pretty quiet for a while. Is this just going to be another one of those instances where he just shows up at that point where he needs to and just gets in? And then there's Andrew Wilson. Like, what's going to come of that? Is he going to be able to get his foot in the door here for the first time and make the team? But it's just, there's a lot of another one of those races where there's a lot of intrigue as far as who's going to have that race. And then as we all know, you being a breaststroker, there are times where that stroke just doesn't want to cooperate, and these guys are dialed in, but there's microscopic areas where that timing might be just a little bit off, and that's really going to throw somebody off in that long course to an abreast. And is it going to come at that time for one of these guys? We just don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's going to come down to a long finish. I think somebody is just going to hit the stroke right at the right time, and they're going to go from fourth to second. I think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, so I just to echo a couple of those points to get to the men's 100 free, I think, we might see Nathan Adrian coming full circle here. I was at 2008 Olympic trials when Adrian made his first team when he was the young gun, coming up. And one of the advantages that he had was he made it into the final. I believe he qualified 8th out of semis. He got the last spot into the final. And this is an underrated in sprinting. This is an underrated thing is because it's a 10-lane pool and they only compete in 8 lanes. If you qualify 7th or 8th, which nobody would try to do, how close all these races are, right? It's impossible.
Aaron Pearsall would.
Well, he might. He might. You have to be like the best of all time to cut that sliver, right? Yeah. And I think it gave him a big advantage. And we could see him in that position again, where he's swimming from the outside lane. He's got that open water next to him. And it's able to just give him a little bit of a better chance to make it. I agree with you totally. I'm on Caleb. I wrote Caleb Dressel world record watch. He's so close to that world record. And you have to believe he's going to be swimming really fast at this meet. And just to bring it full circle, you bring up Andrew Wilson, and I said I would reference Division III swimming. Could we see the first U.S. swimmer who competed in Division III make an Olympic team? All right.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
And I went back and did a little bit of research into some of the closer calls. Now, D3 swimming fans, and of which, I don't know, are there like 2 or 3? It's like me and
me.
Joel.
And Joel, and then the guys who swam at Kalamazoo in the 90s or like whatever, who started d3swimming.com, but that's probably it. But James Bourne, okay, this is a guy who swam at Kenyon College. He still, from 1985, has the second best all-time 100 free at Kenyon College, 43.4. So this is a guy who is competing at D3 Nationals, putting up a time that would have been competitive at the D1 NCAA meet. So I fast forwarded. He was probably a victim a little bit of poor timing, right? Because he had to hold on till 88 for there to be another Olympic trials. He finished 13th at Olympic trials and didn't make the final, obviously, didn't have a shot, but he was certainly close to being able to do that. So this could, again, be another moment of history should Andrew Wilson grab one of those top 2 spots.
That would be pretty cool. I remember watching him swim at nationals, and just hearing, like, again, because it's not like it's a big meet for Division III nationals, and just what a good guy he is. I forgot he was like aeronautical engineering major or some crazy thing. Like, so a really smart kid. That'd be so cool to see that. Yeah, and again, like the 100 free, it's like if you're from the United States, basically you're just like, any kind of page is like, let's just get to the 100 free. Let's just kind of get to the meet of any kind of meet. That's all a meet is for us, is let's get to the 100. And yeah, definitely kind of seeing what that'll do. And I think, again, I really want like Abby Weitzel to do well. It'd be great to see her put together some swims this meet. Caleb Dressel, again, just the big name where I think obviously the swimming world knows him so well, but the true test of fame obviously is when your mom actually knows a person's name. And
Right.
so she knows, Michael Phelps, yeah, and then the other swimmers, no. And so, but I think this is going to be the kind of a meet in the kind of year where also everyone becomes a Caleb Dressel fan.
Caleb Dressel, everybody's mom will know Caleb Dressel, I think, by the end of the summer.
And then of course the good-looking guy on the Modelo commercials, like on the Nathan Adrian, he's been around forever. It's like, oh, such a nice-looking young man. Yes,
Right.
yes,
Yes.
and not that young in swimming world kind of thing. But yeah, it's really cool. Again, the thing in a sense the sport needs is those personalities. Those personalities kind of coming out and being seen, and the experience that those people have. And so I think it's going to be a lot like the Rio team in that you're going to have a lot of like people who are like, who the heck is this? And then some of those leaders like Dressel, who's been around and done so many big meets, and Nathan Adrian and obviously Ledecky, that are going to be one to kind of keep everything together.
Yep.
Yeah. Pretty cool.
All right, Eric, on to day 6.
All right. Day 6, my top one is that men's 200 IM. I think it's a pretty easy one at this point to pick as far as some of that stuff goes. But it's, at this point, Michael Andrews going to be having a host of races already put through. This seems to be, other than that 100 breaststroke, it really is his best opportunity to make the team. Is he going to be able to, doesn't have to go 28 maybe on that last 50, but is he going to be able to have the kind of energy and everything coming into it on that final, that he's got the 100 fly that morning, so he doesn't have a whole lot potentially dragging him back. But it's are we going to see that out of him? Are we going to see something out of Foster? Is Ryan Lochte, going to be able to get through to that race and be able to do great? I really would wish it would just be a matter of him picking one or two events in totality and just doing those. But the reality is, by the time he gets to that 2IM, he's going to have a lot of swims on an older body. But we just don't know what that's going to be like, because everybody ages different. We just don't know.
We'll see about that. I don't know if he's going to swim everything that he entered in. I do think that there is some over-entering.
It wouldn't surprise me. We saw what happened in 12. We saw what happened in 12 and what that did to London. I mean, it's just one of those situations. And then
come on, Eric. This is an older, wiser Ryan Lochte. Don't.
I'm sorry,
my honorable mention, of course, is the men's 200 backstroke final. Pebley stepping back, this really opens the door for that second spot. Again, going back from a Texas A&M boy, right? Fanboying it up with Shane Casas. He's got a chance. He's definitely more lined up better for that 200. He's going to have some races under his belt at this point, so some of those first race jitters might be out of there. And I really want to see something great out of Ryan Murphy. It's not to say that he doesn't swim great, but I want to see something great for him, and I want to see this help push him towards Tokyo and really be able to kind of take back that crown and put a fantastic, exclamation point on this 2021 situation for him. I'd like to see him go further, but we just don't know if this is going to be his last games. But I love watching him race. I just, everything about his backstroke, it's fantastic. As a former backstroker, it's a great race to watch. Long course. I hate swimming it, but
I love swimming it because I suck at it. So
yeah, you just float.
Yeah, that's right.
200 meters.
I don't know how to kick, so I don't.
When you lose your legs in the two-bag long course, you ain't got nothing left.
Well, see, the key is to not start with any legs, Eric. Yeah. So if you don't start with them, you can't lose them, and then you feel pretty good the whole way. So
that's true. You can't win if you don't play.
Joel, do you think there's going to be when Shane Casas makes the team? Do you think in an emotional post-race interview he's going to talk about how Eric always believed in him and how it sort of inspired him to make the team?
If he doesn't, obviously he's just so self-centered and narcissistic, because he just does it. I mean, he's got to feel the love. From the whole state of Texas, it's like I just feel this surge of power from me coming from the Houston area, and I don't know what it is. Yeah. That's my. Speaking of surge of power,
that's right. That was a surge. That was more than a power surge.
Yeah, this is why, like, again, when it comes to Olympic trials, I'm kind of like, I'm looking for like the one thing, and so the one thing for me would be the Ryan Murphy. Obviously, I think you're right with Lochte. I think he's just trying to make a team on a relay or something like that. Just try to get one more swim so he can hang out in the Olympic Village. It's just my guess.
Yes, and stay on the Village. Stay in the Village.
Yeah.
No leaving the Village, Ryan. Okay. This time.
Yeah.
He's mature now.
He's mature now.
Married, kids. Yeah.
He's married. His kids. He's settled down. He's going to stay.
And it's not Rio.
Stay on the Village. No lying to Billy Bush. Okay, on the beach. You don't want to be on the beach making up stories to Billy Bush. I don't think Billy Bush will be there, so there's that. You know, he's still disgraced from the Access Hollywood tape. Colby College alum Billy Bush, by the way, in my alma mater. My last thing I'm watching for there on day 6 is the women's 100 free. You know, I just want to see is Simone Manuel sharp, you know, because, again, she's one of those swimmers who is at the level. I mean, she's always sort of been this way, right? She's never like putting up that crazy fast time a month, 2 months out, but she always seems to show up when it's really an important time. And it's obviously going to be a crucial piece. You talk about all those relays for the U.S. Having Simone at her, 52.0 level around there or better is going to be the linchpin for them to contend in relays. They need that. So I'm going to be watching for that. All right, we're getting to the end of the meet here. Day 7, Eric.
Yes, day 7. Are we going to see a 48 out of Dressel, that 100 fly? I mean, if he's on, he's got the 50 that morning. He's got a really light morning. He's just got to be able, and he's first up right out the gate. Are we going to see that? Are we going to see what we know he's capable of here at the end of this meet? Now we saw with NCAAs. Now that's a much tighter situation when he's going for that 100 free, and he really just kind of ran out of gas and energy for that. But again, that's a much more condensed calendar. I would love to see him bust off a world record here, and then anybody behind him. Like, are we all going to be ecstatic when Michael Andrew makes the team in the 100 fly with one kick butterfly?
Yes,
I can't imagine how many of the old school people, their head would explode that somebody like this would sully the U.S. Olympic team. I'm hoping for that opportunity to troll with a situation like that, and that's just my honorable mention. the women's 200 back. This final is really going to be a fantastic fight. If Baker's foot can handle the entire week, or if she's going to pick and choose and just then come back and focus on this 2 back and not maybe do the 2 IM like Joel talked about with all the different changes in angles and walls and stuff like that. Are we going to see the young guns in that 2 back just duke it out? Like, there's going to be so much fighting. We could just see a world record just because there's so much at stake, and even just being able to try to make this team. I don't see it being one of those slow finals where they just kind of happen to just be the fastest of everybody. That's definitely one of those races where it's going to be tight and it's going to be super fast.
Yep. I mean, I don't have a lot to add on those. I'm sort of watching for the same thing. I will say, here's where we're sort of going to what's going to come into the picture here late in the meet is how many events is Dressel? I don't think it's a matter of will he make the team, right? Everybody you can bet your house on Caleb Dressel making the team, barring a lightning strike, and maybe even then. I think if he got struck by lightning, he might still be able to make it in the 100 free.
Still get 6 in the 100.
That's right. But how many events will he make it? And, what does his program look like for the Olympics? How, he's entered in 6 events. I don't expect him to swim out of those 6 events, the 200 fly. I'd be very surprised, but legitimately he could be there in 5 events and he could be on 3 relays. And then he's got the setup for the 8 events, the mythical Michael Phelps 8-event Olympic program. So be really interested to see that come into focus. What else you got, Joel?
This is the day I'm really interested in watching for a lot of those swims. And I think one of the things I'm also interested in, just as Eric was talking about with the NCAAs, just the adrenaline meet that is, where it's such a compact meet and all these relays and all your teammates around you. And the thing is with the young swimmers versus older swimmers, I think that's where this day really comes into play, not so much where the meet is too big for them, but managing that adrenaline, managing your sleep, managing your rest, and how you recover between all these races. A guy like Dressel knows how to do all this. And not to make it a USRPT versus the big yardage thing, I think his training background over the years, he's going to be fine for whatever he wants to do. And even if the lightning strikes him, he's like, flesh wound, I can manage to, no worries. But it's the management of the adrenaline and how to go after these meets and know when to kind of put all the chips on the table kind of thing. Like you said with Simone, the same thing where first couple swims, okay, we just need to get this far. And I remember, again, another one of my failings as a coach was I only went to Olympic trials in 2000. And I just remember getting there and thinking, obviously this meet isn't for us. I had some really good 400 swimmers, that was back when the shark skin suit was just coming out and every kid was fighting at the table and they had all these holes in them. Meanwhile, the Stanford and the elite swimmers over there, they already had their suits fitted for them a long time ago. They've already done a bunch of races in them a long time ago. And we're over here in the warm-up pool fighting over a suit. And then you get in and you're just trying to get in and make one more swim. And these people have already thought, I know how to make one more swim for sure. I want to think how I'm going to save it for that last swim. And that's, I think this is the day, again, where that experience comes in. Again, it's not like a psychological thing. It's literally just managing your adrenaline over that span, because it can be a long meet.
Hey, Joel, was 2000 the year that the Stanford swimmers had those vitamin patches, or was that 2004?
It is amazing how Balco and a lot of those places apparently didn't sell to Olympic athletes. They only sold to Barry Bonds. I guess he bought the truck, so there was no such thing.
Oh, right. No association with Balco and swimming.
No, they don't sell to amateur athletes.
Right. Matt Biondi, not a client of Balco. Guys, look it up. Google that. No. Google Matt Biondi Balco. I'm sorry. I know I just.
We're not going to talk Schubert too, are we? Oh no.
All right. Let's get to the end here. We got the last day, and I have almost no idea what to say. There's so little being contended on the last day. But Eric, bring us home.
Yeah, I'm sorry, distance guys. We're picking a top event and honorable mention, and you end up in third. But it doesn't make you less of a person.
Oh man.
But my top race that day is the women's 50. And Joe had spoken about it with the women's 100. This is going to be a really interesting one because it really is. It's won or lost, in that first 15. And we had gone into it a bit in depth when we talked about Abby Weitzel's start and just her ability to transition up to the surface. If she's able to do that, she's going to find her way on the team in the 50. But there's just so much between prelims and semis and finals to know for sure who's going to be in that 50 that we have a good idea, but it's really intriguing to me to see who all is going to be there, that's on the younger side. And when you talk about energy management, Joel, and mental and emotional management, if they're in that final, are they going to have anything left in the tank? Are they going to be just fried neurologically? Physically, they're going to be able to handle that, but just mentally are they going to be exhausted? And then the men's 50, Adrian's going to be in the top 8. Are we going to see Anthony Irvin sneaking into the top 8 because, he's looking at having 350s this week, and it's just going to be a matter of progressively getting more race experience again because he's been out, traveling the world and training and doing some racing, but not a whole lot. Is Dressel going to hit everything exactly the way he wants? And are we going to see a 20 point? Are we going to see anything? nothing that he does surprises me anymore, other than how much faster than maybe it was that he did that I would have guessed.
Right.
So, yeah, there's several guys that are right there on that cusp that haven't had their moment yet on an Olympic team that have an opportunity to sneak in. It's just a matter of who has the best race in that moment. It's going to be so funny that there's only 3 races on that day, and there's 2 of them that are just so nerve-wracking in terms of what's at stake. So,
yeah. I mean, I said I would come back to men's distance, and so I do think, again, while you're watching this, just look for those glimmers of hope, U.S. swimming fans. And I will say also, when it comes to the Olympics, I have something to admit, and that is that I'm an Olympics bigamist. Okay, I cheer for the U.S. team, and then I also love my Danish team. So I'm watching that 50 freestyle because defending Olympic champion from Denmark, Pernille Blume, I want to see, are there Americans that can challenge her as she looks to defend that title? And thankfully, for my wife's sake, I limit my bigamy just to Olympic fandom. Joel, you have anything to add for the end?
No, I think, again, like you said, the 50, I always, again, I'm going to come off as it's funny, like in this room, I'm going to be the negative one. I can't believe that is, but it's going to be me probably. But again, we're married to the NCAA system, and yet it's like I think we should have more 50 freestylers that are a lot quicker than. I mean, that's what NCAA is, 1,500. We should be better at this. And so I think, again, when you look at the mile versus the 50, it's like, well, we better be really good at one if we're not going to be good at the mile. And right now it's kind of a wide open field internationally, but not so much for the U.S. on some of these events.
Yeah, I would throw in there because I mentioned it on an earlier podcast, David Curtis. I said he would not make the Olympic team. So this is his chance to prove that I'm just a big hater. Seated there with the 21.8, and he's certainly better traditionally on long course and has improved a lot in his short course swimming. And that'd be a high school boy. Making it in the 50 freestyle, which would be pretty crazy.
I think that's pretty. The interesting thing is, I remember again back to like 98, 2000. I think it was Dr. Sokolovich, who's with USA Swimming at the time. He put out the list of like kind of the average age, your peaks for your different events. It's like, well, that was also before athletes were sticking around a lot longer, and so I think the ages have pushed up a lot more. We've seen that. But the interesting thing, I think, is like you said, the 50 freestyle, when you get a younger guy trying to compete with 26, 28-year-olds, that's like going to the NBA. Same thing. Like, it's one thing to, be in the high school or national level. It's another thing when you're against LeBron. So the same thing with this, where you're like, those younger swimmers, like that were in the wave one, it really looks interesting to see what they're able to do sprinting-wise like that, and also from the training paradigm. Yeah,
and having seen David Curtis in person, it's not as if like you make that NBA analogy, okay, but like you look at like a high school player going right to the NBA and doing well, like LeBron James. LeBron James had a man's body coming into the NBA.
No, I mean, look at LeBron now. Look at that. He's a tight end now. All of a sudden, you're coming in, you're like, oh,
but right.
But seeing this stand next to Nathan Adrian was like, dude, that's a middle linebacker. That's not Nathan Adrian. It's like, oh, that's
David Curtis looks like a teenage boy. I mean, he's not exceptionally tall. He's not exceptionally like built. He looks his age. So it's really incredible how fast he can swim. And I hope he proves me wrong. All right, guys, I think this is I'm just going to say this is the best podcast preview of the Olympic trials on the internet. I haven't seen any others. So, I assume SwimSwam will try to put something else out there, but how can it match up to this level of analysis? Really? Thank you so much for joining me. Thanks so much to everybody for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon.